Leadership isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's something that you need to work on regularly throughout your career, regardless of what level you're at or what industry you're in. So it's not being a boss, it's really, learning to lead people by example.
We have Aaron Rumley here today. Aaron is a phenomenal accountant, and he currently has 30 staff that he built a business from scratch and scaled it up. Aaron, welcome to the show. Super excited to be talking with you today.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Aaron, you know what? There's a lot to dig into, but let's go back to the very beginning on what was the moment that you said, you know what, I want to start my own business, and maybe you can take us through maybe that beginning story that you had.
Sure. Well, just to start at the very beginning, I went to school to a top-rated accounting school in the U.S., and I started my career with KPMG, which is now one of the big four accounting firms. And while I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to work with KPMG and the skills that I was able to gain working there, I learned early on by working with a lot of large and medium-sized companies and dealing with the CEOs and CFOs of those companies that if I really wanted to be successful, I needed to control my own destiny and not rely on someone else to determine this for me. And to me, there were some important factors that would drive my decision to start my own business. One was I had the desire for independence and the ability to be my own boss. And it wasn't because I had a problem with authority, but rather that autonomy allowed me greater control over decision making and the work process. I found that in a lot of big organizations, you've heard the term paralysis by analysis. Any decision needed to go through several layers of bureaucratic red tape, and by the time it was finally approved, the early adopters of certain technologies or whatnot had already capitalized on these new ideas. So you were kind of at the bottom now. So that was one important thing, was that independence. I also knew that owning my own business had the potential to give me the financial success and the independence that working for an employer for somebody else would not allow. So starting my own business was a way of achieving my financial goals on my own terms. And as I look back over the last 20 years, I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't a lot of hard work and a lot of long days, but I can tell you it's truly been a rewarding experience, not just financially, but also it's been satisfying from a sense of accomplishment to see what I've been able to accomplish and do over those last 20 years.
That's right. So that's phenomenal, Aaron. So you have Rumley Homes LLP, which is your accounting firm, and then you later started Liahona Capital, which is a mortgage insurance corp. So anybody that wants to invest. So I want to dig into that in a little bit, but let's go. I'd like to maybe stick at the very beginning there before. So you ended up starting the company on your own, and you ended up bringing another partner on about 2 years in. Can you take us through, how was the very beginning? Was it hard? Maybe, are there any stories that maybe you can share of that early struggle phase and how you overcame, we'll just say, that early staring into the abyss, chewing on glass beginning phase there before, income started coming in?
Well, it's definitely, I'm not going to lie, it's a scary proposition starting your own business. Yeah. At the time I was living in the U.S., I had a good job with a big company and, living comfortably. I left that job and moved back to Canada with nothing. So I literally had no job, no place to live, and had to move in to my parents' house for 6 months. So, the good story is it only took me 6 months to get from, moving back in with my parents and then out and buying my own house again. But in the meantime, it was scary not knowing, what to expect or what was going to happen. But I can tell you it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I can remember those early years, or even the early year. I remember I would take every opportunity to go up to speak to someone. So if I saw a new business open, I would drive in, I would go in, introduce myself, let them know what I do. I'm not going to say that I got everyone as a new client, but I did get a lot of new clients just by going in and introducing myself. So it's
Aaron,
a lot of hard.
I can't think of many accountants that have walked into my office and say, I've started a new firm. Well, do you need any help? That just doesn't happen. So it sounds like you picked up a decent amount of clients that way just by knocking on doors.
Yeah, I was looking for every opportunity, and even back when they used to do it, the Chamber of Commerce used to send out a list of all new members that had joined the chamber. Even just from that, every month when I got that, I would write a letter and I would call every one of them, letting them know that welcoming to the chamber, letting them know what I do and if I can help them. And again, that just provided another layer of new clients.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, that beginning stage when you are just afraid to put food on the table. I mean, in this case here, you moved in with your parents, but that was probably like, I need to swallow some pride. We actually did that when I was put on waivers when I was playing hockey down in Texas. I was in the Central League, and Joanna called her parents saying, Mark's been put on waivers. We need a place to be. And they, the 6 months there, it seemed to be kind of right around the time frame that I had to do the same thing. But it wasn't even my parents; it was my wife's parents, which was, there's a certain element of pride. But what that also does is it drives this, we'll just say, massive action, because you're in such uncomfort mode during that period that it forces you to do things like what you did, Aaron, is like just knock on businesses' doors and sending letters, like doing all the things that other accountants probably aren't doing. And it seemed like you got some fruit from doing that. Not many other accountants, I'm sure, would be doing that, right? You have a natural ability to build rapport, but trust. That's one thing. Right from the moment that I met you, there was this like instant trust there. And you fall through on that. And that's what builds, I think, even deeper relationships, as you mentioned there. So what would you say is a common misconception that when people look at your industry, the accounting world, that maybe one would think is a misconception or maybe a myth?
I think one thing that people think is that all accountants are boring. All they do is number crunch, and they lack social skills. But honestly, yes, that's true. But that's true in any industry. There's introverted accountants, just like there's introverted, real estate agents. There's every type across every industry, and I know that in this industry, there's lots of people that have vibrant social lives, diverse interests. Also, it's not just number crunching. A lot of people think all that an accountant does is sit at a desk all day and crunch numbers, and that's all they do. But honestly, the most rewarding part of my job is being an advisor, being a strategist, and communicating with my clients. It's not the number crunching. That's part of the job, but that's not the most important part of the job. So those are two really, what I would call big myths or misconceptions about the industry.
Well, think about the how much deeper a relationship goes once you call them and say, "Hey, listen, I saved you $50,000." Right? That's a wonderful phone call, and 100%. The advisor part of it is where I think really great accountants, that's where they earn their loyalty with their clients as well, versus, okay, here's a return, here you go, versus, hey, did we think about doing this year and this and this? And I know through the years, Aaron, you've approached me with certain ideas like that have, saved me many thousands of dollars, and doing it all legally, but, abiding by the rules, but being smart with how we, structure each of the businesses that we set up. Are there any like values or principles, Aaron, that you filter your decisions through on a day-to-day basis to be able to make quality decisions?
Yeah, I think in order to answer this question, you really need to look inward to identify your own values. And for me, I think it's operating with complete integrity. That to me is essential in this business. Because if you don't have integrity, you don't have accountability. And if you don't have accountability, it tells me that you don't value your own work. And if you don't value your own work, then why should anybody else? So for me, I think the principles that I ascribe to the most are integrity and accountability.
Yeah, I like that. Well, that's on a day-to-day basis. You're making hundreds of decisions, right? So if you're making those decisions so you can put your head on your pillow at the end of the day, I mean, that's how you're going to be able to sleep at night, right? So you're currently over 30 staff right now. What do you think some of the main key lessons that you've learned by hiring? I mean, you've hired many people. You have 30 currently, but there's always turnover in every business. Are there any key lessons that you've learned through, starting with yourself, and then now you have 30 staff, of, we'll just say, any counsel that you'll give our listeners as they start hiring people and scaling up?
So there's a phrase I sometimes use is slow to hire, quick to fire. The point of that is that, first of all, you should take your time to get to know the individuals that you're hiring. Don't just hire someone because you need a warm body in a seat. Because as you know, and especially in a business where there's a lot of training involved at the beginning, it's very expensive, to have someone come in and train them and have them leave right away. So one, you want to make sure that you look for personalities that jive with your firm culture. Look for people that have good work ethic. And then, that's the first part. But the second part is, you need to treat people the way you would want to be treated. So, one important thing in a successful business is surrounding yourself with a team that can help you grow. And being part of a team doesn't mean barking orders at somebody or treating them poorly. It means giving them responsibilities that will help them become part of that team and help them grow. So I think I learned early on that if you want to retain good employees, you treat them well, you give them responsibilities, and you let them succeed. Yeah,
that's really good. Not barking orders. It's interesting. I was reading through Dan Martell's Buying Back Your Time, and what he talks about the difference between transactional management and transformational leadership. He says that most managers, they tell their team members what to do. They check up on them that they did it, and then they next it, right? But what he says is that he provides outcomes. So we'll just say transformational leadership, it's here's the outcome. So as a leader, you would be giving to his staff, here, I'm going to measure that outcome, and then I'm going to coach you on that to get that outcome for the next time. And It's just such a different approach coming from, telling and then checking, telling and checking is this ongoing order taker mindset versus, you're coaching somebody to play the game, right? You don't ever see coaches running on the field and taking over, playing the game, right? But I think that's how a lot of managers manage people. They come in and it's like, get out of the way, let me show you how to do it. And then they go and do it versus like coaching them to actually do it better.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. The motivation side of it, Aaron, it's tough being a business owner. You go through a lot of failures and challenges. What keeps you motivated? Like, what keeps you getting up every day and going back at it, especially at the beginning stage when you didn't know if everything was going to come together, because there's an element of faith in starting a business and then, waking up day after day, year after year. What keeps you motivated on a day-to-day basis to go back at it?
Well, I mean, when things get tough or challenging, you're right. It's hard to stay motivated and get motivated. So I think it's important to set what I'll call SMART goals, or SMART specific goals. And that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely goals. So that helps. When I do that, it helps me focus my energy on what's important and what keeps me motivated. It's also important to celebrate the wins, even small ones. Recognizing your progress and achievements, even when you're not going as fast as you like, can really help you stay positive. And then also, it sometimes helps, during those times, to seek external motivation. And that could come from books, come from writing in a journal, and especially can maybe come from working with a mentor. That also helps quite a bit. So those are some things that you can do to keep motivated when it's hard to stay motivated.
Yeah, that's great counsel, Aaron. Very, very good. Is there a certain failure you remember going through? Are there any examples that you can give of going through like a major challenge, and how'd you get over going through that? Like, what were some of the key things that you did, and any specific examples that you want to share with us?
And you know what? The sooner you view failure as an opportunity to learn, the better you'll be equipped to deal with it in a positive manner. One business venture in particular, this was with Liahona Capital. We ran into a regulator who decided he wanted to make our lives difficult. So during this process, it meant halting any new investments for the fund for almost an entire year, which seems devastating, And during the time, it was extremely difficult. It was very taxing mentally, dealing with the regulators, and a lot of times, we would wonder, why us? Why do they feel the need to make us go through this? However, in the back of my mind, and anybody that started a business and planned for it and did it right, I knew that over the prior 3 years, we put in countless hours of work. We did our homework. We knew that we did it right. And so just dealing with this bit of challenging, regulator that came up at this point in time, it really motivated me to work even harder, so that once we were back up and running again, we could hit the ground even quicker. And in the end, everything worked out. Once it came back up and running, we actually had a flood of brand new investments, and the fund more than doubled in the span of 2 months afterwards. So it really worked out, for the best. When I look back at it, you can't always look at these challenging, not even failures, but challenging opportunities. Look at them as growth opportunities, really.
So there's a few things that I got from that, and thanks for sharing there, Aaron. So first, you did your homework as you're going through. So and then you put in the work. So you ended up working harder. You doubled down to make sure that the regular got what they needed, and you did what was necessary. So you didn't just like pause and not do anything, and then seeing it as a growth mindset, as a growth opportunity. It's interesting as you go through these. It is very, very easy to get this victim mindset. Like you had said, or it's like, why did that? But the difference that I find with top producers is when they go through that, everybody gets those thoughts. Everyone. It's just how long do you sit in those thoughts? Do you sit in it, a day, a month, or is it like a year, or is it a quarter? and so this is where I found that as I've kind of grown, the time frame of like sitting in that victim mindset has shrunk immensely. So I just want to encourage you a couple things. One, you know what? If something comes up, it's natural to like, oh my goodness, and like go through that initial, we'll just say mindset victimhood, right? But the reality there is if the faster you can tweak it over into what, I'm going to actually make this a victor story versus a victim. That's where every single challenge that you go through, as Aaron said, is a growth. If I view this as a growth opportunity, now I'm not a victim anymore. Now it's in my control. Right. And so here's the thing that I'll add to everything you said, Aaron, which was great through that story, is that going through those challenges, especially when you first start up, are great legend stories down the road. As for, you can refer back to that early struggle that you had, and potential customers and clients, they resonate with that because they can relate. Because most business owners, they've been through those challenges before. You're not the first, and you're definitely not the last, right? So if you're going through a challenge right now, think of it, this is going to be a future story that I'm going to share, and I'm going to be able to share it with my head held high because I know how I dealt with it when it came up, when it was hard, where most people would give up. What are your thoughts on that, Aaron?
Exactly. Like you said, you can't, you can play the victim, but, that's not going to get you anywhere. Like you said, the quicker you learn that these are just opportunities to be better and to grow, when you pull up your bootstraps and you make it work. So definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. Just keep moving forward, right? What do you think makes a great leader, Aaron?
Well, I mean, if you look throughout history at the qualities that great leaders have, you can look at the Winston Churchill, you can look at Martin Luther King Jr., you can look at Abraham Lincoln. You'll notice that they all have particular traits, such as integrity, accountability, empathy, vision, emotional intelligence, resilience, passion. You don't need to have every single one of those traits, but you need to have some of them in order to be a great leader. And being a great leader doesn't mean, that you stand at the head of a line and tell everybody where to go. A great leader, it inspires people to follow them. And it's also important to realize that these great leaders didn't get to be great leaders overnight. I say that leadership isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's something that you need to work on regularly throughout your career, regardless of what level you're at or what industry you're in. So, learning to get people to follow you because of what your what you have to offer, and not, like I said, it's not being a boss. It's really, learning to lead people by example.
Yeah. What a great Great answer, Aaron. And if you look through history, any of the, we'll say the tyrants, any of the ones that led by force, they were all overthrown.
Yep.
And nothing, they never lasted, right? It was always the ones that, as you mentioned, everything that you suggested there for a leader to have, it's leading through, like leading by example, and follow me because you want to, because your heart's there, not because you're doing it because you have to.
Right.
So very, very good. No, that's great. Really good insight there. What advice would you give say an entrepreneur? Investing is one of your specialties. So as I mentioned there, you have two companies. One's the accounting, and then the other one, Liahona, is the mortgage insurance corp. So maybe I'll just start on the accounting side of it, and you kind of reference it a little bit as to what differentiates you. But what would you say on Rumley Homes, their accounting? Why should somebody come and work with you on the accounting firm side of it?
Why would someone come work as an employee for?
Or sorry, why would somebody want to say work with you as a client? Why would they say want to transition over to you? What would maybe be the one to two main things that really stand out that would add value to them?
Well, I think one thing that we've done to try and, because let's face it, a lot of accounting work is compliance work, and you need to be able to differentiate yourself from other firms, because a lot of other firms can do the compliance work equally as well. So one thing that you can do to differentiate yourself is I would like to think that our firm's an early adopter of new technology. So whenever something comes out that's going to make our job easier and more effective, I'm looking at that. Two, I would like to think also that we're big on making sure that we're on time, because everybody is on a schedule. One of the biggest complaints I've heard is that they've had my information for 6 months and it's still not done. So for us, working on turnaround times that are reasonable and convenient for the client, that's another way we can differentiate ourselves. And then three, just being approachable. A lot of times you hear that other accounting firms, you can't get a hold of the partner, or the partner doesn't respond, or you really can't talk to them because they don't speak your language. You have to be able to explain things in layman's terms to people so that they can understand it. And I think, again, that we do a good job of doing that.
Yeah, so we have technology and the online on-time reporting. So that's a big one as well. And then approachable and accessible. If you have a question, you can get the answer and you'll be able to understand it in layman's terms. What would you, so we have entrepreneurs listening, what would be like one or two, say, key tips that you would give them when they start their business that has helped your other clients in the past? When it comes down to, proper tax structuring and maybe, one or two tips that they may not know that would add value to them.
Well, I think my advice to an entrepreneur that's either starting a new business or has started one is to be organized. If you're not organized and stay on top of your finances, it's really difficult to make any important decision in your business. If you can't tell me where you've been yesterday, how are you going to tell me where you're going to go today? That's sometimes when we start a new business and we're being entrepreneurial, we lose focus of we're just trying to get to that next point, but we can't forget where we've been, and that's where we've been. That historical information is really going to help us determine where we need to go and the direction of that business, right? So
how would entrepreneurs stay organized? Because we're talking most of the entrepreneurs that I know out there, they're very much, I'm going to go tack the new land. And then you got people kind of following in behind, kind of cleaning up their mess that they made. It's like, I'm going to go conquer lands. Just guys, clean up. I'm going to go, forward and kind of shake the bushes a little bit. But what would you say would be a tip in order for them to stay organized as they're taking a new land, say?
When I say keep on top of your finances, like, when you're running a business, whether that's, having a good bookkeeper that keeps things organized and tracks the day-to-day activity. We all know that cash is king. So you could be making all sorts of revenue, but if your accounts receivable never get paid, you're not going to have any cash to run your business. So, and how do you know that unless you keep track of everything, right? So it's just important to, again, I think it's important to have good people in all aspects of your business. I know how to paint, but that's not my forte. I'd rather hire someone to paint, and I'll keep doing my business. It's the same with other aspects of your business. You do what you do best, and leave the other parts for other people to help you.
Yeah. I think that's really good insight because, as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's very easy to get down on yourself saying, "Oh, I'm not organized," or, I'm missing these details and these. But I think the fastest way, so you can change your whole personality and how you do things, and that takes a ton of effort, right? And you can still do it, don't get me wrong, but if you hire somebody that's really super organized and you allow them to look after it, well, that's an instant fix if you get the right person. So I think that's really good insight. Instead of trying to fix your weaknesses, my take has always been double down on your strengths and hire out your weaknesses to be able to buy you more time to focus on your strengths. So I like that. I like that advice, Aaron. Tell me a little bit about Liahona. So the listeners that are listening, what exactly is a mortgage insurance corp, and why did you start that
Sure.
company?
So Liahona Capital it's an exempt market dealer, but really it started as a mortgage investment corporation. So when we started it back in 2007. It was really started because my partner and I were unhappy with returns that we were getting in the stock market. And we said, hey, we have this opportunity here to form a company that has, it does have, good tax strategies because the mortgage investment corp doesn't pay any tax. So everything that the mortgage investment corp makes is distributed to the owners, right? So or the shareholders. So there's not that layer of corporate tax. So it's a special corporation under the Income Tax Act. So
can you explain that a little bit more, Aaron, for the listeners out there? So why you said it's a special exemption? So is this widely known? Maybe you can explain that a little bit.
So it's just one of the exemptions, or one of the special. It's one of the corporations under the Income Tax Act that doesn't have to pay corporate tax, but it has to distribute all the earnings to the shareholders.
So if somebody makes, say 6 to 8%, or whatever the return is, we'll say. Okay. The returns that come in, so the amount that they actually receive, there's no tax on that? Is that?
No, sir. So let's say the mortgage investment corp makes $5 million in income. Okay. So normally a regular corporation in Ontario, at that level, it would pay roughly 26% corporate tax, and then whatever's left over, it would send as a dividend to the investors. Okay. In this case, the full $5 million is distributed to the shareholders. and then the shareholders pay tax at their individual level. So it's just a, it's a great opportunity to have a business that allows you to do that. Now there's obviously, certain guidelines you have to meet in order to be one of those corporations, but if you can do it, it's great. So we set up this corporation, and started, with a very small amount of seed money, I'll call it, to start this business, to start investing. And really, a mortgage investment corporation, what it does is it lends money for mortgages. So first mortgages, second mortgages, whatever you decide to do. Ours is very conservative. We probably have, maybe 65 to 70% first mortgages, and the rest are second mortgages. So very conservative portfolio.
Yeah. One of the things I like about it is that it's something physical that you're investing into, right? So if it's a second mortgage, or say even a first mortgage, if whoever is taken that out and owns the property, if they stop making their mortgage payments, you have some sort of collateral that you can go in and take the property over and get your funds back. So I like that it's tied to real property versus, say, the stocks, where you're still buying a piece of a company, but we'll just say it's a little bit more. It's more physical, where you can actually substantiate what you're actually investing in, right?
Yeah, it's easier to understand, a physical asset rather than, a share that, sometimes doesn't make sense how it's valued, right? So definitely easier.
So you've had double-digit growth pretty much every year since you started. What do you think is the biggest contributor to double-digit growth year over year?
Honestly, I have to give credit to our clients, because honestly, I think most of it is just word of mouth. So as we continue to grow and provide good service to our clients, that corresponded to them telling other people, who would then, come and call us. And so really, I think it really just came down to word of mouth.
Yeah, it's over time, you keep going, 10, 20% year over year. All of a sudden, you look back in 10 years, like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how much we've grown. But that's substantial. But over time, that's where you got to change as a leader as well. As you start growing, like 10, 20, all of a sudden, now you have 2 people, and then you have 5 people, and then like, oh my goodness, we're so slammed. We need, now we have 10. And then next, you got 30 staff, right? And so how has your position changed through that growth period, Aaron, as a leader?
When I first started off, I wore every hat. And that's what you'll find when you start out your own business. When you first start off, you're going to wear every hat. You're going to be the HR, you're going to be the IT, you're going to be, all these different things. So you have to do all those things. But over time, as we continue to grow, you'll realize you can't do all those things now, and you shouldn't be. So over time, the number of hats I've worn has changed or been reduced, especially since other partners have come on. But now we have dedicated IT, we have dedicated HR. There's different partners that look after certain aspects of the business, which allow you to really focus on the business and, focus on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, that's good. And I think for the listeners, it's expected you're going to do all the roles at the very beginning, as Aaron said. And so as time goes on, just the one piece of advice that I'll add to what Aaron said is that when the business calls for you to grow and develop into a different role, be ready for transition. It's like, what does the business need from me? And be willing to do that. Because Aaron, I've seen this many times. I know even for myself, transitioning from like a salesperson into, say, the CEO role, like at one hand, it's like I wanted to be very helpful, and by doing sales and bringing sales in, it's very transactional. People can see it, whereas like a CEO, it's all behind. It's still in front of people, but it's not as transactional the same way. And so that's where I need to really humble myself and like step back. And as time goes on in any business, you got to be constantly delegating out. And by delegating, that doesn't mean that you're not doing work. It just allows you to do the more important things. But if you spread yourself too thin and you're constantly trying to do everything, that's the biggest reason why I don't see companies grow, is because the leader is trying to grab onto everything versus delegating out to very strong lieutenants.
Yep. I'm a big proponent of delegation. You can get 10 times more work done if you're willing and able to delegate it to capable individuals.
Capable. We'll underline capable. You give it to somebody that is not capable, man, it's not good. Okay, you don't want to do that. They got to be capable. And that comes into the whole making sure that when you're hiring somebody, you're putting them through the right process. And, some high level, you can give them a job simulation, you can get references, and the number one thing I look for, Aaron, when I'm looking for somebody for skill is, do they have a track record of winning in life? Like, take me through where you're born and take me right through all school and all through your careers, and take me through some of the challenges that you had to overcome and some of the wins. And Aaron, you'd be surprised. It's like, and I know you've seen this in people. It's like you look back in their life and it's like, oh, this happened and this is the excuse why, and that happened and that. And like a win for me is if somebody is even, they win a school championship in football. Great. That's okay. You know how to win on that. You buy your first house, in this market. That's a checkbox, right? I put myself through school. It's like, okay, that's a check. You didn't play victim there, that you couldn't afford it. You made it happen. So it's interesting that I see the really greats, that's the number one indicator that I see, is that track record. It's really interesting. So Aaron, what investing you've seen a lot of really successful investors on the accounting side. I know you're successful personally, but then you also have the Mick as well, investing. So you have a lot more experience seeing wise investments. What investing advice would you give the listeners out there whenever they're selecting an investment?
Well, first I'll premise that by saying, I would first advise them to start early. The earlier you can start, the better. In my kids, I've instilled them to start saving at a young age, because, the earlier you can start, the power of compounding is amazing and drastically impact your savings in later years. But I think, as far as investing goes, to some degree, you need to find your passion. If it's real estate, then look for investments that will help you develop that passion. Also seek out successful mentors in the areas that you're interested in, and ask lots of questions. If it's a good mentor, they'll answer those questions for you. They'll help you understand, and you'll get so much wisdom from them. And finally, take a long-term view towards investing, especially the younger you are. The younger you are, the longer your investment horizon is. It's not something where you need to look at your portfolio every day. That'll drive you mad, especially depending where you're at, especially in the stock market. Watching the roller coaster isn't helpful. If you make thoughtful, well-researched investment decisions and stick with them, 99.9% of the time you're going to come out in spades.
Yeah. So just to recap here, start early, invest in something you're passionate about, bring on mentors and ask them lots of questions, and then have a long-term view. That's Very smart. Yeah, Aaron, any stocks that I've invested in the past, like looking every day, it's not, that's why I love real estate so much, is it forces you to have a little bit more of a longer term view, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool. What are you excited about right now, Aaron?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question because it depends where you are in your lifestyle, or in your life cycle of your career. For me, there's lots of things that excite me. Like it excites me to be able to spend more time with my family. Excites me to travel the world. I'm also really passionate about service, and as I get more time and I have more time, I'm looking forward to being able to devote more time to serving others in my community. As far as business, from a business aspect, I'm pretty excited about the future of AI and the possibilities that it's going to bring to businesses. If and when it's used properly, I think it's going to transform a lot of businesses for the good if it's used properly.
Yeah, that's great. I'm finding now I'm using AI more than ever. I'm writing something, and then if I have a question, I'll go there instead of looking up on Google. You can go on ChatGPT, do a search on it, and it's just phenomenal how it continues to gather information, and it's able to like curate and do the research and then curate a response. And what I found with that is it gives you like 80%. You got to go in, and then you got to add. So you got to have the right question. They give you the right content. So that question is super important. And then they'll give you like 80%, that last 10%. So the first 10% is your question. They'll give you 80%, but then that last little bit of work at the end is kind of what personalizes it. But you're able to plow through a lot more. And that's just one aspect of the future of AI. But it is definitely, they say it's going to be as big as the internet. So the internet, how that changed everything. It's like AI is going to be artificial intelligence there is really going to change not only businesses, but how we operate on a day-to-day basis. I totally agree with that.
For good or bad, depending on how you use it. But I mean, the internet can be used for good or bad too. But I do see a lot of positive things happening, and I'm excited. I mean, something as simple as I use an AI note taker. So every meeting I have now online, instead of me sitting here jotting down notes on a piece of paper or on a tablet, I just sit and I'm able to be present in the meeting and listen, answer questions, and then within 30 seconds after the meeting's over, I have a nicely summarized summary of the meeting. I've got action points for everybody. It's phenomenal.
That's wonderful. That's great. Which program do you use for that, Aaron?
I use fireflies.ai note taker.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, it's that's actually would be so that's great for accountability as well after the fact. So somebody later says, "No, I didn't say that." It's like, actually, let's go back to the notes. Right?
It's phenomenally accurate too. Like, I'm so surprised that it could pull, just from our conversations, it could pull that out of there. So
yeah, well, it's harder for team members, including ourselves, I guess, not to BS anyone, right? It's like, well, let's just go back to the notes. Like, ooh, nobody can. Yeah, well, that's solid. Great advice there. Cool. You ready for the rapid fire part of the talk?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. First question. We got 3 questions here. First is, which book has had the biggest impact in your business overall wealth creation?
For me, probably, when I read E-Myth Accountant by Michael Gerber and Darren Root, it really changed the way I looked at my business and the way I was working in my business. Basically, the premise is that you should be working on the business rather than in the business. I realized I was spending way too much time working in the business than on the business. So that really had a profound impact on the way I ran my business.
Yeah, it's a classic book, but this one is catered for accounting, right? And so
Exactly.
it's cool what they've done with the eMyth is they've actually spun it off in different businesses. So actually search your business under eMyth by
Yeah.
Michael Gerber, and they might actually have a spin-off of your business for the eMyth, which is such a great idea. Good insight. All right. 3 words that others would describe you as, 3 different words.
It was hard for me to come up with this because you're trying to like,
You got to like humble. It's like, don't humble yourself on this. You got to like you got to like brag about yourself on this. Really. What would they say would be the 3 kind of,
I put 3 down and I asked my wife and she said, yeah, that sounded good. So,
good.
So I would say honest, reliable, and compassionate.
Yeah, I agree with all 3 of those. Yeah. Your wife knows you really well, Chrisanne. She's a real treasure that you have there too. You guys are so good for each other, I see. All right. So last question here is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Start investing younger and don't be afraid to take calculated risks.
Great. So good, Aaron. So if listeners that they're watching or listening, how can they reach out to you and find a little bit more about their businesses, about your businesses, and if they want to reach out and connect?
Sure. So our website for the accounting firm is www.rhpartners.ca. And for Liahona Capital, it's www.liahona, which is LIAHONA.ca.
Awesome. Aaron, appreciate you a lot. Thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, Mark.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Mark Faris experience. I hope you found today's conversation as inspiring and insightful as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with others who might benefit from the insights shared today. And remember, the journey to success is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, I'm Mark Faris, and this has been the Mark Faris Experience. Have a great day.